Just when you think you've seen everything, you see a giant robot fusing with a vehicle and then it's surfing time. Araknie here, and I'll bring you into the war-torn world of Ranger X. And what a world it is, to be honest. You come into place with your mecha into an already in place war. The Earthers against the Rahuna. That's all the plot you need. You know why there's not enough time for more character and story development? Because killing sprees don't wait for text scrolls, so we go into the fray. Be afraid. It's time to seek out some skill from these players. You wanted a 3-button controller? Then there you have it. With A you shoot to the left and with C to the right. Enemies will try to surround you all the time, but they don't respond. Just like in real life, that is permanent. Already this originality makes the game into a pure run and gun of the highest order. What does B do, you ask? It shoots your special weapon. You start with 2, but you will find others. This is really well done and makes fantastic use of Sega's peculiarities. It's high-octane action that comes at you fast and takes you for a ride. No chance in hell to breathe. Gotta do it while you still can. Everything is amazingly responsive. You jump by pressing D-pad up and you're also furnished with a jetpack that can overheat. So keep pressing it and you'll see how you move. The level design will assume knowledge of these systems even before the halfway point, so just learn to be good. Another thing you'll need is to explore because the special weapons are plenty by the end of it. Well, what do, soldier? You don't know anything? I'll tell you this time, babyface. First of all, you need to know that you have a power meter that governs how strong is your special. You need to get into your auxiliary robot to cycle through them. Yes, you have another blue fella, sometimes big but mostly small, that follows you through the entire game. Just go above it, press down and then B to select the next weapon until you're satisfied. Also, you're solar powered, so if you're in the dark you might get less recharge or none at all. That means different things for the different equipment, so pay attention. You start with a flamethrower that shoots straight, but with less power you get less range, so be careful how far away you are at every moment with it. Then you get a napalm mine that spreads fire in the direction you've thrown it upon contact. This isn't affected by your power, aside, like many other weapons, simply stops working when you don't have any. Then you get the ability to use a laser, that if you keep pressed it moves all around and body blasts everything. 360 degrees of separation, limb to limb. After that you get a miniature punching robot that automatically targets enemies and moves from one to the next as long as they are on sight or you have finished your energy. How utterly overpowered is that? Don't worry, you can't use it against bosses. Too good otherwise. A flame blast for your ears, if you please. I do like it, it's pretty good for what it does, but I have to admit it's a bit difficult to understand what you eat and what not really. Too big an explosion to be really visually helpful. Also, apparently there's another one, but it's so powerful they hid it in some secret patches somewhere. I couldn't find it. Good luck to ya. All of them have a specific use, so make good choices and think fast. The stage design is honestly inspired and varied in really interesting ways. First of all, the developers didn't lock themselves into any sort of structure. Sometimes you might get a boss after the level, other times not. And you get a second part before it. Instead, they did what they found design and thematically wise to be fitting of what they wanted to put in the game. It's very unique compared to what we played until now, so let me explain real quick. You'll have to defeat different types of enemies in missions Mire to make the robot weaken and get you an opening to reach their leader. And it's a specific number of them each time, scattered across the levels, plus some secrets that lead to the extra weapons. You can even miss all of that and get on with only the basic ones, but do so only if you like to suffer a lot. The stages are interesting and will require interaction more often than not, like destroying a bunch of buttons with the activate turrets, or avoiding searchlights do not trigger a single alarm and get enemies that no matter how much you turn around, they still get behind you. Fortunately, in some cases your own transform helper will shoot too and destroy them with a big one-hit kill laser. Okay then, can't complain if the devs thought about it. The enemies have different patterns and behaviors, so they keep it varied, and very original too. I already talked about ones that come out only with alarms in a specific level, but there's also some that require unusual actions. I don't wanna say too much, but my favorites are the ones that have a shield and you have to bump them to make them drop it, and then shoot them until they're blasted. Amazingly so, they will also go back to grab it if you give them the time. How cool is that? But there's a lot of weirdos from the previous levels that are peculiar. Interacting with them is part of the great fun you'll have here. Bosses are created, they might have multiple phases, they might be protected by normal enemies or even trying to trick you. They've got variety and they're here to show it. It's incredible how this game is not more well known, I truly do not understand it. Were people just so angry at the mere marketing of the Mega Drive that they were unwilling to accept the fact it was the perfect console for action fans? Listen, I like RPGs as much as the next guy, but I can play only those, especially since they are longer, they can't be anonymous for me. The Super Nintendo has plenty of those generic ones. You won't see those on this channel. Also those that don't play as good will be skipped. Too long a time commitment to play trashy RPGs unless they're really weird or funny. While in Ranger X bosses might reflect one weapon but suffer from another. There's even one that will try to trick you into shooting a giant ball just because it looks like a weak spot while it's just triggering a trap launching fast at you. And it's fair because with fast enough reaction times you can avoid it too. Never a dull moment. Especially since there's a lot of interaction between enemies, bosses and the backgrounds. Like in this skyscraper stage, with these long-legged robots walking on it and crashing the windows. And some windows have light coming from them, so if you break some yourself, you'll find some ways to recharge your power on the way up. Same concept in a cave level. You're gonna think this place is not the way to go for your powers and that you'll be stuck with the normal gun. But nope, you can break the ceiling, and then it's a lights galore. Plus there's some hidden enemies in the background like in this case, here in the hangar corridor. Incredible, I love when backgrounds become really an integral part of the gameplay. Need to talk about the art? It's just peachy and they get weird with it. To present the missions, they did this wireframe 3D stuff that reminded me of how the city was presented in Escape from New York. Funnily enough, that sequence was made entirely by doing model work. It wasn't 3D at all, but it fooled some people. Just a bunch of fluorescent coloring and sapient light work to give it that feeling. Instead, here it's real computer graphics. Has to be, we're playing a game, but not inside of it. And it's accompanied by the most ethereal yet appropriate music. The only chill moment you'll have in the entirety of it, because otherwise it's such a blood-raising soundtrack that grabs your heart and doesn't let go. What a fantastic display of musical talent. The composer clearly had experience with real instruments before this because they made use of the battery in a real, full and experienced way. It's mostly simple in other games, but here you can feel how they really interconnected it well with the other parts of the melody. This just gives me all the vibes I need when I'm ripping through metal. As you do. And it was also a good training experience for Iwadare, who will go and become the series composer for Langrisser and Grandia, who did just sound effects for this. Gotta start somewhere. So in closing, I gotta say that Ranger X deserves a 9 out of 10. It's a masterpiece. The only reason why it doesn't become one of my favorites is kinda silly, but at least inconsistent. I, for example, love the extreme replay value offered by Contra Hardcore, but had consistent trouble with some of its design elements. This run and gun fixes everything I thought was broken, but it doesn't offer much after you pass it through the first time. Since it's a long playthrough for the type of game this is, there's not else to do. You only need to finish it on normal 2 to get the full ending, so it's not even that hard. At least it's a well-balanced game that ramps the difficulty in assumption to the new gear you're supposed to find, and better skill you should have by just playing a bunch. Good job on that. If you wanna see me play the games that I will review plus some extra stuff, catch me on Twitch at Araknie Retro. It's my natural habitat, you see? Until next time, ciao ciao!